Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's episode, we are going to create our database connection and login functionality using PDO. So, let's get started. On your editor window, open core folder and create database folder. Inside database folder, add PHP files, name dbconfig, dbconnections, and dbquery. Let's open dbconfig file and add our server configuration. On our DB connection file, let's add our dbconfig. Next, create a class, and inside our class, let's create one property and a constructor. Inside our constructor, let's add try and catch. In our try block, we'll add our DSN, short for data source name. Now, let's connect to our server DB using PDO. Next, let's set our PDO attribute. In our catch block, let's pass in the PDO exception and echo out the exception message. Now, our DB connection has been set up. Let's create our login functionality. In our core folder, let's add actions folder. All our action taken by the user will be handled in this folder files. So, let's add login PHP file and add the functionality here. Inside the file, let's check if the user really submitted or click login button. First, check if the submission is set and check if it is post method. You might be wondering why use post here, not get. Post is the safer way of submitting the data to the database. In order for you to understand their difference, when your form method is set to get, the user can see the information and is being included on the browser's URL, while post is not. To demonstrate you the difference of the two, let's go to our login page and on our form add method attribute and set to get or post. Then fill up the login fields and submit, and observe your browser's URL. Now, you know the difference between post and get method. You should understand and analyze when to use get and when not to. So, let's get back to our login PHP. After we check whether the user submitted or click login and check if the form data submitted uses post method, then let's create two variables and pass the data into our variable. Now, let's check if the username or password is empty. If the username or password is empty, we will send the user back to the login page and show some message. In order to do that, we will add session. Let's add a session folder inside our core folder, and inside session folder we will add flash PHP file and inside we'll add two functions. But first we need to check if the PHP session status has already started. If not, we will start our session. Next, let's add two functions, set flash data that accepts two parameter, key and value. Next function will be get flash data that will accepts only one parameter, which is the key of the session. Inside the set flash data function, let's check if key or value is empty, then return false. If not, we will set our session data with key and value, then we'll return true. Inside our get flash data function, let's check if the key parameter is empty or the session with that key is set, then we will dump our flash message. If not, we will pass the session data to a variable, then unset the session with that key and then return the flash data. Let's go back to our login PHP file inside our actions folder. On the top of the file we will require the session file. Inside our if condition, we'll set our flash key. Inside our nested if condition, we'll set our flash data. Then let's check if our set flash data returns false, then dump flash message and then return in order to stop the execution. If set flash data returns true, let's return back the user to the login page and then add return to stop execution. On the login page, we'll display or show our session message. First, let's require our session file on the top of the login page. Then check if our flash data session is set. Then we will loop through the session and echo out our flash message by calling the function inside our session file and pass the key. Let's open our dbQuery PHP file and add our class. But first, let's check if the session is not yet started, then start our session. Next, require our DB connection. Then create a class named dbQueries that extend our DB connection class. Inside, let's create a login function, and inside let's add our query with parameters. Next, prepare our query, then execute the query by passing our data, then get the row count. Next, let's check if the row is greater than or equal to 1, then return true. If it returns 0, return false. Let's go back to our login PHP inside our action folder. Inside if condition, let's check our login. If it returns false, then set our session flash data and return to login page. If it returns true, then let's redirect to the home page. Let's add our home page. In our home page file, let's include our header, navbar, and footer PHP file. Now, let's perform login in our login page. Let's start our Apache and MySQL server. Open the XAMPP control panel. Next, click Start buttons for Apache and MySQL. Then open our project in the browser. In the URL, type localhost/smis and hit enter to open the page. To open our MySQL database, in the URL type localhost/phpMyAdmin. To create our database, on the SQL tab next to databases, type create database, then our database name SMIS, or click new in the left panel. On the databases tab, enter the database name, then click create. To create our table, make sure to select the DB name we have created. Then, on the SQL tab, type create table, then table name and add parenthesis, then semicolon. Inside the parenthesis, add column name ID with data type int set to auto increment and primary key. Next, add column username set to varchar 50 and not null. Lastly, add column password set to varchar 50 and not null. Then click Go button. Now, let's insert a value on our users table. To do that, on the SQL tab, type insert into users, username, password, values, guest, 1234, then semicolon and click Go button. We have now successfully inserted a user credentials on our users table. Let's try to log in our user credential we have created. We received a SQL error here, saying undefined variable query and uncut error to call a member function login. So, let's fix this. On your text editor, open login PHP inside action folder, and require our DB query class here, then create an instance of the DB query class. Let's try to log in again. If you cannot log in using the credential you have created, please remove MD5 on your login function inside DB query to log in successfully.